let's discuss the idea behind the fruit of knowledge. And what is the fruit of knowledge? It is any substance that causes a heightening of resonance within the mind. And what did this particular fruit of knowledge cause? Well, for humans, as explained in the Bible, it created attraction. Until Adam and Eve ate the fruit, they were unaware of each other's nakedness, which upon eating the fruit, all of a sudden, they sought to cover themselves because they saw each other as naked, and this created attraction. Attraction which led to procreation, which gave life to the next generations. And in order to understand the attraction portion of things, one needs to understand the strengths of each sex. Because in the strengths of each sex, we can now identify the things that cause a dislike or a like as a like or a dislike for the other ones. And we see this constant change in perspectives until we meet and find the perfect partner. In the perfect partner, you will find your strength be their weakness, just as their strength be your weakness, an equilibrium of sorts, where you now engage mutually. And in order to engage mutually, we have to identify now the strengths of man and the strengths of woman. When identifying the strengths of a man, it's not difficult to identify. A man is more physically dominant. He is a dumb brute, to say the least, you could say. Because what is a man that is just physically dominant? That's all he is just a body. What is a woman's strength? A woman's strength is her intelligence, her mind. In the identification of the mind, we now see that when woman is intelligent, man is dumb. Whereas where man is strong, woman is weak. In the change of perspectives. But in order to identify where these particular strengths and weaknesses lead to creation, or specifically the force that drives to creation, which is initial attraction. In initial attraction, we begin to see now the patterns of how we meet at eye level, eye contact. And in order to create a meaningful connection, an individual needs to be able to conversate in order to express, which if man is strong physically, but is a dumb brute mentally, he does not engage in the woman's kingdom of the mind. The internal world, if you wish, the internal world where you can grow from. And in this particular notion, what does a fruit of knowledge do for man? It allows you to conversate. If man is a dumb brute, if man is too much man, he is much more of a brute. And in the idea that if a man wishes to engage in a woman's mind, to attract her, he needs to be able to conversate, which is what happened in the story of Adam and Eve. In the initial story, Eve tempts Adam to take the fruit. Adam, being the brave man he was, says, I will go first. And in going first, what ends up happening to Adam? He rose to the same level of consciousness as woman, as Eve, which created all of a sudden a attracting force. In the understanding of how a woman's attraction works, a man cannot simply just be a body. Because if you're just a body, then guess what? That's all you are to the woman, just a body. And anybody that has achieved a level of mind or consciousness can manipulate any body to do their bidding. And in this notion, in order for man to be equal, he has to rise to the woman's level of consciousness and the ability to conversate. Without the ability to conversate, a man is unable to take his life in directions that which involves critical thinking. If a man has too much body, he lacks the ability to critically think. And now when we identify the strengths of a woman, that which if a man seeks to rise to that occasion, he needs to induce a fruit. And what do fruits do? They engage the man's mind. They cause the man to be more expressive. But it gets to a certain point. Because now we see the problem of addiction in man. Where we see that for men, the only way a man feels love is in the ability to stimulate his intelligence and the ability to induce a fruit in order to conversate to a woman. And the more masculine a man is, the lesser his ability it is to conversate. But now let's identify the strengths and weaknesses of woman. For man, it's simple. We see a good-looking woman, we want her. But that doesn't mean you're going to get the girl. It doesn't mean you're going to get the queen, which in a chessboard ideology, in the idea of chess, the queen can move in any direction she wishes, back and forth, and take any pawn she wishes. Whereas the king remains the last moving piece. Because it is in order to win the chess game, you have to win the other's king. You have to take the other's king. And this chessboard or chess game of life is a constant battle between man and woman. In the idea of woman, a woman can seek any man she wishes. She can be satisfied by any man she wishes. But that is her weakness. Because in the intelligence of a woman's body is also the lacking ability to understand the, not to sound misogynistic here, but to understand the patterns of using your body. The same way a man knows how to use his body, he lacks the ability to use his mind. The same way a woman knows how to use her mind, she lacks the ability to understand how to use her body. Equal playing field. Is that misogynistic? No. Because in the end, who truly rules the world? A man is just a pawn if a woman knows how to play them. And a man will go to great lengths in order to satisfy a woman, which begins the initial sex roles within our society. Is the idea that a man should be the provider and woman be the caretaker truly a societal standard? Is it a societal construct, or are those the initial patterns that specifically were set from the very first two humans? And you might say, well, I don't believe in the Bible, I don't believe in that, I believe in science. Okay, you believe in science, and how is it that in most animal kingdoms, which are not influenced by man or woman, in animal kingdoms, as biology, a science states, who gives birth? The woman. Who provides the seed? The man. And in the provider and the caregiver, we now see that in all animal kingdoms, it is a woman that holds the baby, the infant, to feed it, while man goes on the hunt to feed not just himself, but the woman, so that woman will have enough strength in order to feed the new infant. And in this particular kingdom, you might say, well, I don't believe in that either. Well, what do you believe in if that's the case? Because if you do not believe in anything, I would identify you as a confused individual. Sex is not a societal construct. It is a physiology and a biology. It is a psychology, just as it is a body behavior pattern, which unless if we meet in these behavioral patterns, we see the break in relationships. If a man does not use his mind enough, a woman seeks a more intelligent man. If a woman uses her body too much, man seeks a woman that uses her body less. And in these strengths and weaknesses, we have to meet at eye contact or eye level in order to conversate, allowing connection, which once again drives us back to the predominant notion of the fruit of knowledge, that which allowed man to be able to conversate with woman. And until a man knows how to conversate or express to a woman, he is just a dumb brute to the woman. And who is it when in a marriage, whether it is any marriage form, between man and woman, between woman and woman, between man and man, who is it that gets down on one knee to surrender their efforts forever to say, from this point on, if you accept this proposal, I will provide for you. I will work to provide for you because I am surrendering my body. I am taking a knee, which is a, how would you put it? It is a submissive state to take a knee. And it is the masculine energy, regardless of sex in marriage, that surrenders their energy to the feminine, asking, will you marry me? In the notion of, I am now yours if you will be that which allows my seed or my life to live with. Now, where do we see the breaks in the percentage of now known as divorce? Now, we used to have a fairly high divorce rate at 50% divorce rates, but now we see a divorce rates are closer to 60 to 70% of divorce rates. Why is that? And if we wish to understand why that is, we have to understand the physiology of man and woman, the initial sex roles of man and woman, which man must provide and the woman must be the caretaker. And if you do not believe in that, then I would suggest you end the video now, because this will not benefit you going further. Because if you choose not to understand why marriages are failing at such a high percentage rate, which in the past we did not see these particular high divorce rates due to the gender or sex roles ones would take in marriage in order to sustain a happy household. Man must provide, woman is a caretaker. But as a caretaker, woman has a mind, which when a woman says, we need this, the man uses his body and goes and achieves that. When a man says, I need this, the caregiver, utilizing what the man has provided, creates something for the man. Now, this sounds, how would you say, misogynistic? Okay, why is it that most gay marriages fail? Because there is a constant battle between the same sex. And if you see the same-sex struggles now taking form, and the idea that we cannot accept our sex roles as people, whoever proposes is the provider. Regardless of your sex, whoever proposes is the provider. Whoever is proposed to is the caregiver. Because you are accepting that person's providing to you. Which results back once again to the relationship built from its initial starting point, which is the man's ability to stimulate his intelligence, where now we see the high addiction rates in men, specifically because in order for a man to feel love from a woman, he only feels love from a woman emotionally if he utilizes a fruit. A man is too dumb. The more man a man is, the less he is able to perceive or understand his emotions. And in order for a man to understand his emotions, in order to express, he needs to be able to induce a fruit. It is the initial curse of man. Adam took the first bite. And in taking the first bite, he was the one that was cursed first. And the curse is, as long as a woman remains more intelligent than you, you shall be her pawn, unless if you rise to the same level of intelligence as her. Which, as long as a man no longer induces a fruit, his level of consciousness slowly begins to descend back to a dumb brute. Which once again, a woman will not like that. A woman likes a man that is smart, intelligent, can make decisions, has a driving force, not just mentally, but physically. Because it is the man that dictates where the journey continues by his ability to provide. If the environment lacks the ability for providing, then the man will decide for the family to move elsewhere. For him, for woman, and for the child to move elsewhere. That is the predominant role of the provider. What is the woman's role? As a woman, anytime she needs something, a man must provide. Not just for her, but for the infant, which is unable to provide for itself, which the woman must provide for. And now you see the lineage from initial man to woman to child. This hierarchical pattern of who provides. Because if a man provides first, he is the first creation. Because from him, the lineage carries. From his seed, the lineage carries. in the idea of a woman or a womb man, that is what stems the word woman. Womb man, which a woman is the caregiver for the seed. The intelligence which reflects the physiology of internally stimulating, where as a man you're physical, you are dominant in the external world, whereas a woman is dominant in the internal world. That is where she has the ability to create with her ideas. And now we see where this provider goes to caregiver. Caregiver now shifts to provider for the infant. And this lineage creates humanity. Because we would not all be here if we did not all stem from the first creation to the second creation to the next, to the next, to the next. And this rippled infinitely throughout time, where we now have close to 8 billion humans. And now you might say, well, I believe in science. Regardless of what your belief is, there's still creation happening every day. Or is there? No, because the gender roles or the sex roles have shifted. Which, if the shifts of sex roles is no longer, attraction is no longer, hence the beginning of the notion of divorce, when you're no longer attracted but retracted from one another. And if you wish to re-stimulate a healthy marriage, you need to return to the initial gender roles, the sex roles, regardless of what your sex is, whether it be a normal marriage between man and woman, or a gay marriage, or a lesbian marriage. Unless if the gender roles are met, the sex roles of provider and caregiver, unless if these roles are met, you begin to see the decline in your relationship, where you are no longer communicating with each other. And this lack of communication from woman or caregiver saying, I need this, to man going and getting that to provide, if we no longer have this ability to have these conversations, then we see the failure of relationships. And until you know where you have met the perfect, how do you know your relationship is going to last? Nobody knows if the relationship is going to last. That's the beauty of the journey, according to the driving force that leads the relationship forward. If a man lacks the ability to have a driving force externally, it is the woman that then begins to lead the man. And when a woman leads the man, she finds him pathetic. He's meant to be the provider. Why is it that she is now providing? Not in the sense of how much wealth is acquired, but by simply the effort being met. Because physical money means nothing. It buys luxuries, which, shiny things, great, meaningless, if you wish to achieve a good connection. A shiny thing creates a temptation. And a man needs to be a virtue. A temptation can tempt a virtue, but a virtue cannot tempt a temptation unless if it is brought to the equal level. And in this sense, we now see once again, patterns of recognition of the initial sex roles, which are not societal constructs. They are basic human physiology, biology, and psychology if you wish to sustain and achieve a healthy relationship, which once again resolves back to the ability of a man to conversate. In a study where they studied specifically the effects of birth control, I do not recall the name of this particular study, but they found predominantly that unless if a woman is ovulating, she does not seek the presence of more masculine men to be around. She seeks the presence of more feminine men because they're easier to conversate with, they are easier to be around. A more masculine man is much more of a brute, which if a man now raises his level of consciousness using a fruit while the woman is ovulating, bingo, you get creation because you're guaranteed to get action at that point. And for every action is an opposite and equal reaction. You see how the laws of science not only just affect the physical world, they affect the very laws of the mental world as well, which is specifically singular to yourself. Now let's identify the types of patterns or partners you will meet in your life. There's two types of partners. Ones that give you strength or virtue, and ones that give you anxieties or temptations. And in order for the relationship to remain steady, it is the man that must remain virtuous, and it is a woman that must carry the anxieties of asking, we need more of this, we need more of this, we need more of this. And if you do not see that as a truth, then let's revolve back to the initial first few cavemen, if you wish. Which I'm not about to whack you over the head with my club, but I'm simply going to speak a truth to you. Once a man acquires a woman, it is the woman that seeks to provide for the infant. And if the woman is busy providing for the infant, then the man must be busy providing for woman, so she may provide for the infant. That is the role of man and woman, or womb man. Until a man knows how to provide, a woman will not see him as her equal. Because woman, in the idea of feminism, we could say, woman seeks equality in the physical world, where in the idea of masculinism, a man seeks the equality in the mental world, because each sex dominates in the different forms of the realities we take place in. If a woman is more intelligent, she can make any man do her bidding. All she has to do is tempt them with a good time as a reward. And a man will do anything for that reward. Because it is harder for man to achieve that reward than it is for woman to simply give it out. For a woman, it's easy. The idea of acquiring, how would you say, sexual pleasure, for a woman that can be done instantaneously. Ask any woman, how long does it take you for you to have sex if you text any man, hey, come over, I would like to get laid? Not very difficult. Any man will jump on that, predominantly because it's extremely difficult for man to get laid. Because in order for man to get laid, it is a reward for his efforts. And the rewards for his efforts are a creation, a responsibility, which as a man you never get to rest Because the more you wish to be rewarded, the more responsibility you must take upon yourself. That creates a greater attraction for a man to have all of a sudden what is known as value. When a man has value, all women will want his presence. Because if a man has value, he's not just a physical presence, but he is a mental presence as well. Without a mind, a man cannot plan his kingdom. And without a mind, the man cannot achieve in his kingdom. And the mind stems from the woman. The ability to conversate with a woman. That is how a man feels love. It is not by sex, because for man, it's difficult to achieve sex, but every time I have sex, I end up with an offspring. And I can't take all these responsibilities upon myself. It's too much. So a man chooses respect and loyalty over sexual pleasure if he seeks a true partner, someone who he may share his life with and conversate every day, to be greeted happily at the door. Welcome home, honey. How was your day? It's really good to see you. Me and the kids have missed you today. Do you have any idea how much that is rewarding for a man? To see his happy family welcome him home from his hard day's work. And now the man may return with, my day was good, honey. My day was good, babe. How was yours? How are the kids doing? You seem a little rough right now. Is everything all right? Are they misbehaving? Yes, they are misbehaving, babe. The kids have been little monsters today. You need to discipline them. Once again, creating the anxiety, creating the temptation is the woman. A woman will always speak the things that need to be done in the world. It is the man that must provide these things. Which now when you look at caveman, once again returning to the initial first two creations, man and woman, man achieves getting a woman. But now the woman is cold and she's hungry. I don't know. How are we going to get food faster? We don't know these plants. They could kill us. We don't know these animals either. They could kill us too. The problem is, as a man, I can fight an animal, but I cannot fight a plant once I've eaten it. And that's what causes me to die. Because if a plant is poisonous, which unless if we've identified throughout thousands of years of evolutionary knowledge of which plants are good to eat and which plants are not good to eat, then man goes on the hunt because he will sacrifice his life to provide for you as woman. It is a quicker way to achieve meat than it is to die looking for plants that seem edible. Because I might be able to kill an animal quicker, and then we cook it with a fire. Which if we need a fire, because woman is now cold, man needs to go collect wood. Which he might need to create tools to be able to break wood, because not every branch is easily snapped into pieces of wood. You see, when a woman needs, a man must rise to the occasion. Because if he can no longer rise to that occasion, for a woman, she's going to say, I need a better man that can suit my needs. The question now is, woman, what are your needs? And how high of a value have you given yourself? Because a man's greed is responsible or directly correlated to the woman's needs. If a woman has smaller needs, it is easier for a man to rise above that occasion. Whereas if a woman has high needs, it's very much difficult for man to battle, and he might not get there in time, whereas another man might. Now, do we see how in these sex roles, we now identify the roots and causes of breakups in relationships? How many women here would say they would like a man to make, I don't know, 7-figure salary a year? Why? What are you worth that much for? Because I need this. I need luxury. I need food. I need warmth. I need a big house, a big room. I need the world to be safe for me as a woman. The more you can spread the safety of the world so that I may walk through the garden as a woman safely, the safer it is for me and the child to venture out into the world. And now we see the idea of conquering. Which, why does man conquer other kingdoms? It is because he's trying to push his fence line to say his garden is greater and is more safe the greater it is. If a man cannot provide a safe garden, a woman will not seek to go out by herself. Which now we see in Canadian civilization, one of the safest, if not the safest garden in the entire world. We also have the rise of the highest divorce rates because we have women saying they need too much and man is no longer able to rise to that occasion. Where do we see that people say they are the most oppressed? In first world societies. Yet are you truly the most oppressed? You have the safest garden. You have the better quality and chance at life, and yet in these safer gardens, we now see a difference between man and woman once again, which is the idea of conflict. Man does not see things from the woman's perspective because man is saying, I provided a safe garden for you, and you still seek more. More and more and more. And I'm growing old and I'm getting weary and I'm getting tired. I can no longer achieve these things. To which a woman now might say, well, I'm going to move on. Most divorces are specifically driven by the notion that the woman wants to leave the man. And when a woman leaves a man, she cuts him in half. She takes half of his everything. Because for her life, she has not been the provider. She's been the provider to the child, but the man has the responsibility of being the provider for her and for the child. If a man cannot provide for the woman cannot provide for the child. And in this sense, a woman will now choose to cut a man in half to say, I need this, which you cannot provide, but now I still need it now that I'm choosing no longer to be with you. And I'm going to take half of everything so that I may sustain and retain this lifestyle without you. Does that seem fair at all? Yes and no. Because to a certain degree, as a man, you have to realize that you've provided this for the woman and child. So you should still provide at least for the child, no longer for the woman. That is the idea behind a true divorce. In a true divorce, you should not have to provide for your now ex. You've made your decision to leave. Why is it that I'm still paying for you to live the same life you would if you were with me, but now you're choosing to say without me? And I'm still paying for your lifestyle. A true divorce should be about the idea of providing specifically for the offspring, not for the woman's needs if she needs to leave, if she chooses to leave. The same way that if a woman makes more money than you in the marriage, you as a man have zero right to say, I'm taking half. I'm used to this lifestyle. Why is it safe to say that's fair for the woman? There's a big problem in society, which is the idea of equality, which if we wish to understand equality, I suggest we understand how man and woman meet at eye level, in connection, through conversation. Thank you.